Welcome to my channel. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Jey Uso was taken aback when he and his brother Jimmy Uso spotted Sami Zayn secretly interacting with Solo Sikoa on WWE Raw. They had an extensive conversation about the bloodline backstage, so this could potentially be seen as a betrayal by the Canadian star. Sami Zayn was a member of the original bloodline when Roman Reigns ran it, but he was eventually kicked out of the group after turning on the OTC. He and the Yeet Master got on good terms after the latter turned babyface. On this week's WWE Raw, Sami Zayn spoke to Jey backstage about his sudden reunion with his twin brother. He also wanted to know whether the latter would go to SmackDown to talk with Roman Reigns. Jey Uso mentioned that Solo Sikoa was worse than the OTC, but Zayn argued that the bloodline leader wasn't the one who manipulated him for years and made him jump through hoops to prove his worth. Sami clarified that he wasn't on Solo Sikoa's side. However, something unexpected happened during the show. Jimmy Uso was backstage looking for Sami Zayn so he could speak with him, but he caught the latter speaking to Sikoa in the parking lot. Jey Uso also came in and saw it, and he looked disappointed. Jimmy then told his brother that family was all they had. It's unclear what Sami and Solo were talking about, but it doesn't look good for Zayn. Jey Uso entered the WWE arena with his usual swagger and energy, the echo of the crowd chanting his name reverberating through the stadium. The recent split from the bloodline had given him a renewed sense of freedom, allowing him to forge his own path without the looming shadow of his family dictating his every move. It was Raw, and he was ready to give the audience a night to remember. But as he made his way down the ramp, he caught sight of something that stopped him in his tracks, something that would spark a swirl of doubt, confusion, and betrayal. There in the ring was Solo Sikoa, the powerful enforcer of the bloodline, and Jey's younger brother, flanked by someone who Jey never expected to see by his side. It was his close friend, a man he trusted both in and out of the ring, laughing and strategizing with Solo like they were plotting something big. Jey's face contorted in shock, then in anger, as he watched the two converse like brothers. His friend, someone he'd confided in and trusted, was now sharing the ring with the same brother who had been one of the reasons for Jey's recent struggles and break from the bloodline. Jey knew what Solo was capable of, but his friend? This was the last thing he'd ever anticipated. The crowd's chant of "Use, use, use" grew quieter as the audience sensed the tension in the air. Jey, usually filled with confidence, looked like he'd been blindsided. He shook his head, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. As he approached the ring, he kept his gaze locked on his friend, hoping for some kind of explanation that might ease the sting of betrayal he was already feeling. But as he slid into the ring, neither Solo nor his friend flinched. Instead, they stood tall, a united front against Jey. His friend, who'd once stood side by side with him against the bloodline's harsh reign, now looked at him with a mix of pity and arrogance. "Yo, what's going on here?" Jey demanded, his voice sharp and laced with disbelief. "I thought we were tight, and now, here you are, standing with him?" He pointed at Solo, his eyes wide, the hurt plain on his face. His friend smirked, his expression unreadable. "Things change, Jey," he replied, his tone casual, almost dismissive. "I thought you, of all people, would understand that." The words cut deep, and Jey felt a pang of anger rise in his chest. This wasn't just a friend, this was someone he'd shared his struggles, his dreams, and his fears with. He thought they understood each other's loyalty, the importance of standing together against those who sought to control them. Yet here he was, finding out his friend had made a different choice, a choice that directly opposed him. The crowd was hushed, waiting for Jey's response. His face, normally so expressive and full of energy, was now hard and pained. He stared at his friend, searching for any sign that this was all just a cruel joke or some sort of misunderstanding. but his friend's cold, calculating stare told him everything he needed to know. "Man, I trusted you." Jey's voice cracked slightly, and he hated himself for letting his emotions slip. But the hurt was too raw, too intense to mask. "I thought we were family, bro. I thought you had my back." Solo crossed his arms, his silence speaking volumes. He was waiting, as he always did, lurking in the background, ready to pounce at any sign of weakness. Jey knew his brother's tactics well. Solo never needed to say much, but his presence was always imposing, a constant reminder of the bloodline's threat. His friend raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Family? Come on, Jey. Family is what you make of it. And right now, I've made a new family, a stronger one." Jey clenched his fists, the betrayal stinging like salt in a wound. He wanted to scream, to fight, to make his friend understand just how deeply he had cut him. But as he looked from his friend to Solo, he realized something even more painful. This wasn't just about friendship. This was about survival. It was about alliances, about loyalty to power and dominance. And right now, his friend had chosen the path that Jey had fought so hard to escape. Solo stepped forward, breaking his silence. "You wanted to walk away from the bloodline, Jey," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Well, here's what happens when you turn your back on family. We find someone else." The words landed like a punch to the gut. Jey felt as if the floor had been ripped out from under him. All his sacrifices, all his battles to break free from the bloodline, had now left him vulnerable and alone. His friend's betrayal was proof that, despite his efforts, he would always be one step behind, always fighting an uphill battle against the relentless force of the bloodline. But Jey wasn't about to go down without a fight. Taking a deep breath, he looked at both Solo and his friend, his gaze steely and unbreakable. "You think this scares me?" he spat, his voice dripping with defiance. "You think I'm just gonna back down because of this? Nah. I fought too hard, sacrificed too much to let you and the bloodline take me down." Solo chuckled darkly, his face impassive. But his friend only smirked, clearly enjoying the torment he was inflicting. "Oh, I'm counting on it, Jey," his friend said smoothly. "After all, what fun is it to crush you if you're not at your best?" The crowd was riveted, the tension in the arena thick enough to cut with a knife. They knew Jey's story, his struggle to find his own identity outside of the bloodline. They had seen his highs and lows, his victories and defeats, and now they watched as he faced his biggest betrayal, yet a close friend, aligning himself with the very people who sought to control and diminish him. Jey took a step back, his expression defiant. "You made your choice," he said, his voice steady, though the pain was clear. "But don't think for one second that I'm gonna let you walk all over me. You wanna side with him?" He pointed at Solo, his eyes blazing. "Then you're both gonna have to go through me." His friend laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Oh, we're counting on it, Jey. But remember, you're the one who walked away. And now, you're alone." Jey knew it was true. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with the consequences. But as he looked around at the crowd, he felt a surge of determination. He might be alone, but he wasn't without strength. He had fought his way out of the bloodline's grasp once before, and he would do it again, even if it meant facing his closest friend and his own brother in the process. With one last, hard look at his friend and Solo, Jey turned and left the ring, the crowd cheering him on. He might be bruised, hurt, and betrayed, but he was far from broken. This betrayal, painful as it was, only fueled the fire within him. He would face his former friend, he would stand up to Solo, and he would prove that no matter how many times he was knocked down, he would always rise stronger than before.